Good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett Vollendroff, staff and guests. Lobbies are open. Recording has begun.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We'll convene the board caucus for Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. First up is a review of a memorandum of agreement with the Lower Elwha Clallam tribe. And I'm going to turn it over to Justin Nordhorn for a briefing on that.
All right, good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett and Vollendroff. So tomorrow we're going to be having an MOU presented to the board for the Lower Elwha Clallam tribe. We've been in negotiations on an MOA with them for a period of time. They used to hold licenses, the state liquor licenses, and so this is their first MOA. So this is an umbrella MOA for them. And we were utilizing the new template with the updated dispute resolution. That's been kind of a point of discussion with a number of tribes. And then, the other issue that had come up with this particular one towards the end that was a concern was around the notification on compliance checks. So we typically notify tribes when we're going to be on tribal land doing this type of work. And so they can partner with us and that sort of thing. And depending on the size and scale of the tribe, the contacts can be more limiting than if you have a huge enterprise, for example. And so we want to keep the integrity of the checks. So we don't want to notify the store itself. However, we certainly want to have good relations with the tribe. And so we came to a good compromise on notifications there. And so we were able to get that to completion. And I know that they're excited to get their MOA up and going.
What is the compromise? Where do we end up on that notification?
So initially we have some notifications to like the tribal chair or the council. That's too high level for what they would like to see, because they don't want the tribal chair to have to deal with those types of notifications, and that totally makes sense. And so initially we were looking at the basically the operations manager, and so we're going right in between that particular area. So we're staying with the tribe.
Great.
But we're having multiple contacts so people can get the information and be able to be responsive, and they know in a timely manner what we're doing. And so I think that was a good way to do it, where we're not notifying the store directly. However, we're providing a lot of notice to folks so they can be prepared.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Justin on that?
I have a quick question.
Please.
So it's kind of along the lines of the question Chair Postman just asked. And it's probably in the detail of the MOA, but just wondering, do they ever participate in the actual compliance checks with this? And then secondly, what do we do with, how do we communicate back to them the results of those compliance checks? And is that included in the MOA?
So the communication plan for the results is not necessarily laid out in the MOA, and that would be something the enforcement division would be communicating with them, because they're the ones who are providing the notification ahead of time. But yes, oftentimes tribes will participate in compliance checks, and that's why we provide the notice. So if they have a police department, for example, that want to participate, it works really well with our enforcement approach, because if it's a non-tribal member, then our staff can address the issues. If it's a tribal member, then their police department can address the issues. So those joint checks work out really well when we're going through that endeavor. And so those partnerships are really critical. And so I would imagine, and I don't have the enforcement information right in front of me, but I would imagine there's a follow-up on, hey, we were on your, at your business on this date and time. Everything looked good. We didn't have any compliance related issues. And, so they're aware that we were there. So they would be aware that we're coming, and they would be aware that we were there.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. We'll move now to policy and rules update, and just turn it off back to you.
All right.
And you're in the seat.
All right. So Cassidy is out this week on a well-deserved vacation. So I'm going to be covering a number of the issues that she usually covers here. So the rulemaking timeline, I'm just going to try to capture very high level. So I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. We have currently 15 assignments out to staff right now. And so 3 of those are on different rule petitions. And I say different because we actually have 5 rule petitions, but 3 of them are identical. When they came in from 3 different people, and they were exactly verbatim identical. So we're combining those into one. And so the three areas that we have are the cannabis license mobility petition. That's going to be presented tomorrow. And we have the cannabis transportation petition. That's going to be on September 11th. And then we also have the cannabis social equity referencing the title certificate holders, and that's scheduled on September 25th. And so those are the petitions that we have going on. And then we also have 10 particular rule projects. So just kind of the all-encompassing one is the gender-neutral pronouns, which you've heard about. The CR 105 is scheduled for August 28th. And that's going to cover all areas of rule, so not just one specific category. On the liquor side, we have the emergency liquor permits, and the CR 101 is scheduled for tomorrow, and you'll hear more about that in a few minutes. We've got the cannabis sampling, which is also scheduled for a CR 102 tomorrow, so you'll hear a little bit more about that in a moment, and then the public hearing will be on September 25th. We have a lab accreditation from Second Substitute House Bill 2151. I wanted to call this one out as the informal comment period ends on the 16th. So that's this week. Folks have comments, and you may hear from folks as board members in the waning hours of public comment. So I wanted you to be aware of that. The CR 102 is scheduled for September 25th on that particular project. And so we have the medical cannabis excise tax. This is the substitute House Bill 1453. We're having the public hearing at the end of this month, so August 28th. The CR 103 will be September 11th. Cannabis payment flexibility, we have public hearing on September 11th, and the CR 103 is scheduled for the 25th of September. The social equity in cannabis, we have, and that's the 5080. The public hearing is scheduled for September 11th, and then the CR 103, assuming that there is not a need for supplemental, would be scheduled for September 25th. Also on those same dates, the THC bill implementation for 5367 will also have the public hearing on September 11th, and the CR 103 on September 25th. Cannabis waste for 5376. The CR 102 is scheduled to be introduced to you on September 25th. And then we also have the minors on premises, which was a rule petition we accepted. And that CR 102 is scheduled for October 9th. So we've got a lot of rulemaking activity in the next 6 weeks for you all, or 6 weeks to 2 months. And we also have 2 scheduled projects that have been assigned. And these are both, based on petitions that we received. And so we're now that we're getting through the implementation of legislation, we're able to shift back into addressing the petitions that are in the queue. So we have ID reform. And that petition that was accepted, we're scheduling the CR 101 on September 25th. And then the next one is ESOP. And that is going to be scheduled for the CR 101 on October 9th. And so just around the corner, we're going to be launching a couple new projects related to those former petitions you all accepted. That's what I have.
Okay, it's a lot. Questions on rule timeline at all? No? Okay. Where are we going next? Emergency liquor?
No, let's do the sampling.
Great. Okay.
I'll finish that up, and then I'll hand it over to the rules coordinators on those other projects. And so, again, Chair Postman, members Garrett and Vollendroff, we're going to be covering the vendor educational and internal quality control sampling rulemaking. This is associated with WAC 314-55096. And so we'll be presenting the CR 102 to you tomorrow. And so this is the preview of what's going to be asked for during the board meeting tomorrow. So this rulemaking stems from a petition that was filed by the Washington Cannabis Business Association in July of 2022, aiming to streamline the current framework for vendor education and internal quality samples under 314-55096. The petition was accepted on August 24th of 2022, and the rulemaking was initiated in March of 23 with the CR 101 filing at that point. The goal of the rulemaking was to enhance efficiencies, reduce costs, and improve safety and transparency in how cannabis samples are handled by the licensees. There was a lot of interest from the licensees to be able to utilize current product that was on the production line as the samples instead of having to create entirely different subsets and label those and those types of things, which was cost intensive, as well as not necessarily representing the product to for the educational purposes to the licensees and bud tenders on what the product would be for a customer. So the proposed changes that we have in this particular rule include the introduction of what we're calling trade samples, and this is going to be merging what's formerly known as the vendor and education samples. So we're going to put them into one category so we don't have the complexity of having to figure out how many samples of one type versus another type and what the purpose was for. We're going to categorize them all together into trade samples. Other changes are based on stakeholder feedback, include simplification of the compliance requirements, adjustments to sample size to better reflect the industry interest and the product representation. The proposed rules also emphasize traceability, ensuring that all trade samples are documented within the SACE traceability system and incorporate specific provisions for sample storage and distribution. So the stakeholder engagement that we engaged, and even prior to the rule CR 101 even opening, we had held some informal engagement sessions, a couple of those that helped inform kind of the path forward. And those aren't necessarily covered in the formal rulemaking because we weren't rulemaking at that particular point. But we've engaged extensively with stakeholders throughout the process, and in-person discussions, targeted surveys, and collaborative rulemaking sessions have informed the changes that we're going to be presenting to you tomorrow. So the anticipated benefits are reduction in regulatory burdens by simplifying compliance, enhanced understanding of products among bud tenders, the more efficient sampling process that reflects efficiencies in business operations, and increased support for informed business decisions. The economic impact, while there are costs associated with compliance, such as mandatory sampling language on the labels and record-keeping requirements, we anticipate these to be minor and likely to be offset by current costs associated with creating those special package sizes and associated labeling on those independent SKUs for the samples they have to create right now. The amendments being proposed tomorrow are a direct outcome of that extensive stakeholder engagement and are designed to enhance the efficiency, improve bud tender education, result in more informed purchasing decisions by the licensee and the consumers, reducing costs, simplifying compliance while maintaining the public safety concerns that have been presented. I will say that our public health program was heavily involved in this during the entire course. And so the balance of representing both the business interest as well as the public health and safety have been identified in this particular rule set. So tomorrow I'll be seeking your approval to move forward with the filing of the CR 102. If the board approves the CR 102 tomorrow, the public hearing will be held on September 25th. If a supplementary CR 102 is not needed following that formal public comment period, the CR 103 is planned to be presented to the board on October 9th, and then the rules will be in effect November 9th of 2024. So I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Any sampling questions? No. I'm only going to say, when you're talking about the cost to business, and of course, bottom line is it's optional for business, right? I mean, we're not requiring anything.
Yeah, they're not required to give samples. I mean, they would. I think a business would argue that they need to be able to provide samples to be able to generate the business with the retailers and such, but there are not mandates that they participate in a sampling program.
Right. And I think we are making it a lot easier for people to track how much is being given to who.
Yes, and I'll be covering a bit more detail tomorrow at the board meeting on some of those specifics, but
good.
Happy to cover those if you'd like.
No, that's fine. Tomorrow will be great. Thanks.
And that is it for the sampling rules. And so I will pass it off to Jeff, who will cover what he will be talking and discussing with you tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Mr. Kildall, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Postman and board members, Garrett and Vollendroff. Actually, I don't have anything on the agenda for tomorrow's meeting, but I am preparing a few items for upcoming board meetings. At the August 14th board meeting, I will requests the board's approval to file an expedited CR 105 to amend several rule sections in Title 314 WAC. And the purpose of this rulemaking that Justin noted earlier is to make housekeeping changes throughout the rules of the LCB to use gender neutral pronouns only, such as they and them, instead of he, she, him, her pronouns. And if this CR 105 is approved I'm sorry, I believe I said August 14th. I will be presenting it at the August 18th meeting. I'm sorry. So if the CR 105 is approved at the August 18th or August 28th meeting, the public comment period will be open until November 4th, 2024. And the CR 103 will be presented for board approval on November 6th, 2024, with rules taking effect on December 7th. And then also coming up, I have on September 11th, I will present two items. First is the CR 102 package with proposed draft rules to implement SB 5376 regarding cannabis waste sold by licensees to non-licensees if the waste contains less than or contains no more than 0.3% THC. We will have a stakeholder meeting to go over the proposed rules later this month. And if approved by the board, we would hold the hearing on the proposed rules on November 6th and present a CR 103 on November 20th, 2024, with permanent rules taking effect on December 21st, 2024. And also on December 11th, I will present the agency recommendation regarding a petition to amend WAC 314-55-310 to update the rules regulating cannabis transport by cannabis transport licensees to allow for cross-docking of cannabis products to improve cannabis delivery safety and efficiency. And those are the three things that I have, and I would be happy to answer questions about any of the three. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Don't see any questions, so thank you.
Thank you.
What do we have now? Are we doing emergency liquor?
Yeah, Denise will be covering.
Okay.
Because she's covering for Daniel for tomorrow.
That's right. Okay, so that's emergency liquor. So we will turn to Denise Laflamme for that.
Hi, yes, good morning, Chair Postman and board members Garrett and Vollendorf. I'm going to be covering two projects for Daniel, who's out on vacation today. So I'll be previewing for you a CR 101 that Daniel will be asking for your approval tomorrow, as well as three petitions that he will be asking for your action on tomorrow. So, because he's out on vacation today. So the first one I'll be talking about is the CR 101. And I'm here to preview the CR 101. He'll be requesting your approval during tomorrow's board meeting, and it will be on implementing House Bill 2204. This legislation created an emergency liquor permit, which allows our liquor licensees with manufacturing, such as wineries, breweries, distilleries, to temporarily operate their retail capacities at another liquor licensee's premises if their premises becomes inaccessible or unable to operate due to an emergency or a road closure. This bill was passed during the most recent legislative session and addresses the following type of scenario. A hypothetical winery has to close during the summer due to, say, a wildfire nearby that prevents access to their facility, and a beer wine restaurant in a nearby town offers to host this winery to allow tastings at the restaurant while the displaced winery is inaccessible. Prior to this legislation, Washington liquor law prevented this type of arrangement. This new bill, codified at RCW 66-20-010, Section 19, allows a permit for this exact type of activity. Where a winery or a brewery or a distillery is unable to operate or inaccessible due to an emergency or road closure, they can get an emergency liquor permit to operate in a retail capacity on the premises of another liquor licensee. The permit has certain conditions and limits that Daniel will explain in detail tomorrow. LCB has issued a policy statement on what licensees should do when applying for this type of permit before the rules go into effect. If approved during tomorrow's board meeting, there will be an informal comment period until September 14th. We plan on holding 2 stakeholder engagement sessions on September 30th and October 3rd, and to have proposed rules filed by October 23rd. Following the rule filing, there will be a formal comment period until the public hearing to be tentatively held on December 4th. And assuming all goes well, the final rules would be filed December 18th and become effective January 18th. Thank you, and I'm happy to relay any questions you might have to Daniel to answer at tomorrow's board meeting.
Don't see any. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And the second item from Daniel is regarding a set of 3 petitions. This morning, I'm going to preview the petitions for rulemaking. Daniel will be presenting a recommendation on during tomorrow's board meeting. Daniel is going to recommend the board deny the rulemaking petitions because the board already accepted identical petitions during your June 18th board meeting, and the draft rule language on the social equity rulemaking was filed just last week. These petitions are related to social equity, and the public comment period is currently open. On June 17th and 18th, we received 3 nearly identical rulemaking petitions from Michael Carter, Brian Chan, and Juan Calvin, requesting that WAC 314-55-507 be amended to allow social equity applicants who received social equity licenses during the most recent round of applications to move the location of their license from one county to another. As stated, the board accepted rulemaking petitions on this exact topic during the June 18th board meeting. Additionally, during the July 31st board meeting, the board approved the CR 102 and draft rule language on social equity rulemaking, which was filed on August 6th, and public comment is currently open on this topic right now. There is no reason for the board to accept these rulemaking petitions, as the board has already accepted petitions on this subject and indicated its interest in addressing this topic. And the requested language is actually already reflected in the draft rule language filed on August 6th. Thank you, and be happy to relay any questions you might have to Daniel to answer tomorrow. Thank you.
Don't see any. Okay, thank you for stepping in for Daniel. Is that it?
I believe so. Yeah, we've got, we have the emergency permits, the petitions, and then the sampling tomorrow.
Okay, all right, great. Okay. Any questions at all on rule making from the board before we close this? Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate all the work today. That just takes us to board member, executive assistant reports. Dustin, anything today
Nothing for me. Thank you, Chair.
from the board? Okay, well, I'd say is we have a board meeting tomorrow, and then we have an executive management team meeting at 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. So with that, we're adjourned.